I'm Tiffany Souter, entrepreneur, wife, mom to 4 girls, and a woman figuring it out just like you. If you're tired of living a life of have to and finally ready to build a life of want to, then you're in the right place. Come on, let's go build your life of and. We're recording this on a Friday morning because we're doing it during kind of holiday schedule calendars. I've got a kid in the background that's probably going to knock on the door saying, "Mom, where's my clothes?" Sort of the mode we're in. I'm kind of in the middle of saucy and so we're putting all the things on the calendar where it can fit. So Brian, thanks for joining me for this episode. I'm excited to keep rocking through some of the things that I'm trying to unwind in my life and hopefully use that as an example for others who are trying to figure out how to get through, I guess what I'm calling today a saucy season. So welcome back to the podcast.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, we've actually had a lot of new people join us on the feed. I've been doing a lot of speaking. Sam and I are in this mode of just like, hey, how do we get everybody to sort of know what we're doing and understand the Life of Ann project? So if you are new to the feed, Brian is a monthly guest and I have a partnership with Lushin, and I've used him and Lushin for over 10 years. I was pregnant with my second, I guess almost 15 years. She's 14 now. So many years we've been doing life together, doing business together. And Brian has been just a critical piece of my personal growth, of my business growth, and in particular helping me. I take what was very, I think, an innate sense of selling and turning that into something that I was able to do on purpose and then also scale that in my organization. So it's a little bit about Brian and his organization and how he helps. I want to cover actually 3 pieces today. 1 that's personal, and 2 that are just things that we're doing well, I think, inside of the agency that I stepped out of that CEO role in January that I think others can learn from. So the personal thing I want to talk about is a continuation of our last month's conversation, which is incremental goals exhaust you, 10x goals, massive goals, things that scare you, that gives you energy. And I want to continue because I told you in that episode, fine, I'll make mine. Fine, here I go. And I'll send them to you on Monday. And I did that. So I want to talk about that. The second thing I want to talk about is in the agency, 2 things. The agency business is a service business. It is not a business that necessarily has like massive amounts of like ARR where you're carrying big contracts automatically over into the next year. Like you have to keep winning. And we slipped out of a sales culture a couple of years ago, and you really helped Kyler rebuild that inside of the agency. And so I just want to talk about how you do that, why that's important. And then the second is we will have a record new business year at the agency this year, and I am not involved. And I know a lot of people listening, you know, it's like this founder thing that happens is like, can you ever get yourself out of being the lead horse? And it feels like such a risk to move out of that seat and not be that sales linchpin and let a system develop instead. And so I'm just like really proud of the team. And so didn't know if we could unpack a little bit there, like kind of conceptually, what have they done? Why has that worked so well? They'll sell almost $3 million of new business, which is just a huge number for us. I never was able to do that kind of a number on my own. And it's like very cool to see what's being built in my absence. And I talk, I think, a lot about how sometimes you have to move aside to let things move to the next level. And that's 100% what had to happen here. So can we explore those things?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So let's start with me because that's where I love to start.
It's fair.
So can you recap a little what we talked about and then maybe just ask me questions?
So we were talking about everybody entering the goal season. And typically when you enter the goal season, you're looking backwards and you're saying, well, here's what we did this year. So let's add 5%, 10%. And based on this, we can do this. And what ends up happening is you have this slow, dragging, incremental growth. And it's all based on what you did. And it doesn't look forward at all of what could you do. So the idea to help your brain figure out what could you do or what should you do is to set a much higher goal that you actually cannot figure out how to hit at the start, to go, all right, I have no idea how I would hit that. Shorten the time frame for how quick you're going to do it in, so that you're forced to go, okay, what are the things that have to happen? What are the things that cannot happen? What do I have to say no to? What do I have to say yes to? And all these different priorities come of it because you're narrowing your focus as opposed to widening it or just increasing things. And the side effect is you don't have the grind, you don't have the burnout, you don't have the frustration, because there's nothing worse than saying, well, let's grow by 10% and then doing 8 because you're going, oh, this feels terrible. We didn't even hit this little goal. But if I set a big, massive goal and I fall a little short, well, that's pretty cool because I probably made a lot of progress.
Okay, so I was a little mad at you, which is where I start when you challenge me always. It's like, fine. So that was my internal attitude and maybe external one too. And so I told you I'd send it to you on Monday, and I think I sent it to you on Saturday or Sunday.
You sent it the same day.
Oh, I did? Okay, that night.
Yeah.
I was like obsessed over it. And I was trying to make myself not make it hard. Go with the first thing you thought. And so I wrote down, I want 10,000 people to go through the Life of And Academy. And I want 100 executives to attend my like mini workshop retreat one day, which is essentially going through the course in real life. And then I set a revenue goal, I'm just going to say, of $1 million. Which,
that was the most interesting to me.
Why? Tell me.
Because I remember when we first started working together, you got mad at me then too, because I said, you'll do $1 million this year. And your reply was, no. My dad said the $1 million is the hardest thing to hit. It takes forever, but once you hit $1 million, it's easy. But that's the hardest part. So I was actually glad that you said, well, I'm going to start with theoretically the hardest part is getting to that $1 million.
Yeah. So I said $1 million in revenue because I have seen it's a velocity threshold. And I need to there's an opportunity cost to my time, both with my kids and, my other businesses. Like I have to get this to a place where financially it makes sense to invest as much time and energy into it as I want to, or as I am. And then, the impact part is I have a lot of ways that I can make money, which is an amazing blessing in my life. I really want to do it through this kind of impact. And so having it be a large group of people that I feel like have gone through the course is a big piece of it, because there is a world in this content where you figure out the sales funnel and you get a lot of people to pay for the course, but they haven't actually pushed watch on any of it. And I am not interested in that. That is not my heart, is not why I'm doing this. I will go do other things with my time if that's what's happening, because it's just not where I'm at right now. So that's why those things together were important to me, is I could probably hire somebody to build that funnel and just spray it into the world, but that's different than the impact part I want to have.
Yeah. And that's my mission is more important than the money, and then the money follows. And the money is the least important, which means when we don't worry about it, it tends to be there.
Okay. So here's where I'm getting a little hung up. My background as a financial analyst loves a financial plan that helps me say, okay, well, how many units of this product do I think I'm going to sell? Which means I need to have this many sales motions around those things. I think like that to try to figure out like what's my daily behavior need to look like and what am I doing in this in between, where you've taken this mental leap of saying, okay, great, I'm there, I'm with you, these is my great big goals, but there is this moment where you don't know how to get there. What are the things that I do need to either think I know, or what are the mindsets that I need to have to get myself so that I'm not waking up in May and being like, I am still, because I want to get out of testing mode. I've tested a lot of stuff and I am starting to get some theories of victory in my brain, but I'm just kind of trying to figure out, I don't want to build these massive artifacts like I have at like element 3, we have 20 years of history. It's a totally different point of maturity than where I'm at right now. And so what artifacts do I need to have, or what do I need to be looking at to know that I'm either not behind and I've realized that too late, or I don't get in such a state of change and experimentation that nothing can really have a chance to be successful. Is my question clear?
Yep. But I don't think you're on the wrong path. So experimentation is necessary. In fact, the first goals that you set are hypothesis. When you're doing a science experience, it's what's my hypothesis? I think X can happen. So I'm going to do this and see if it happens. And if it does, then I know something. If it doesn't, I don't. So you're making educated guesses based on either history, like in element 3, or nothing. But the first step is acknowledging that it's a guess. And so you do the experiment and you learn from the experiment and you say, okay, what did I learn? Well, I learned that wasn't enough to hit my momentum. That was plenty. And you just start iterating on that. I think where the experimentation sort of funnel goes wrong is people just keep trying and trying things instead of just honoring the numbers they have and going, oh, I got to do a lot to hit this because now I have evidence that this is right. And the more that you honor it, the more you actually figure out efficiencies later.
So I think what you're saying, like one of my hypotheses is that there's all of these employee resource groups that already exist, because a challenge in my world is working women are incredibly busy. So putting something additive on their calendar is very difficult to like coordinate all of that. And so my observation is a lot of companies already have a motion where women are getting together inside. There's a calendar, that's sort of an expectation on the calendar. They have an opportunity to go to it. So putting this program into like a 1-year, easy to implement quarterly live presentation with supplemental materials alongside. So it's like, hey, you really are ingesting this. It's not just like you showed up and got a little encouragement and the pat on the butt. Like this is literally about leveling up professional women. So that I've had maybe 6 conversations and they've gone really well. I told Sam, I want to have 30 of these.
Well, what does really well mean?
What?
What does really well mean?
I would say my assumptions are being validated. So my assumptions were that there's this underlying feeling that the time is not being used as productively as it could be. The organizers have like tapped their network of cool people who can speak to this group, and now it's like kind of a chore. And that my price point is a pretty easy choice. I've had a couple of people say, oh, I thought it was going to be more, which was my goal. I wanted the financial piece of it to be like, oh, this is easy, no problem. And more like, do you want this? Let's make the financial part a no-brainer, because I don't want that to be the sticking point. So that has been the really well. And I would say half of them moved where I would say they said like, this is my next step and I will be back to you. A couple of people like, thanks, I'll show this to other people internally, but there wasn't as much of a clear next step. So I'd say 50% moved to the next step.
So I would say right now you have no data. And so unless those next steps convert into something that says this is how many conversations it took to get to this transaction to occur, you're still at 0 data, which is going to make it hard.
Well, how can you say it's at 0 data?
How much money has come on? How many signups have you gotten? 0. So you're at 100% of nothing right now. And this is a very real thing. Just for everybody to know, this is a very real thing. Do not confuse momentum and direction with results. Just because I feel like something is going well doesn't mean that it is. It means that I might have momentum. I might have all these things, but there are so many things that we go, wow, this is a great idea. Apple made the iPad in the Newton and people were like, this is awesome. And it died because nobody bought it. And then later when they made it an iPad at the right time, it was perfect. So,
but is market feedback and momentum, are those precursors to results?
They can be, but you don't have any data to say that they are right now. You don't know the correlation between I got positive feedback and I got transactions. So we don't even know if positive feedback is a positive thing or negative. It might be
but in 2 weeks I could know that. Whether
you could know that, but right now you have no data. And so this is the point where you go, I either have to accelerate things to see if I can get more data, or I have to diversify my approach to see, well, if this doesn't convert the way that I need to, where else would I go? What else would I do?
How long would you, because I had those 6 conversations this week. So I feel like I'm early. To me, I would say I'm early. I would want to stay in this test for probably a month. Is that too long?
No, but what are you going to do if the test is successful?
If the test is successful?
Yeah, what's phase 2?
Phase 2 is that we develop the like client service motion for that product so that they're supported. And I go back out into the market to another 30 companies and see if the conversion metrics hold similarly to like the first class that we brought on. That's probably what I would do.
Do you have those 30 identified?
Yeah, I have a massive list of people.
Okay, so that's positive. And are you ready to execute on the servicing platform if the answer is yes?
Yes, it's pretty built.
All right. So those are the right two things to do, to say, if this works, so you're successful when you know your lever. So if I know if this occurs, this is the lever I pull. If this occurs, this is the lever I pull. And then, so that is what happens if this goes well. You have the lever of, if I get nothing out of this, what lever are you pulling?
Well, I probably panic a little bit. The other motion that is working is me speaking in front of groups. And I did a talk this week and like 70% of the room converted into the course, which was a really good data point. My personal challenge is that I love to do that and I can do it within an hour and a half drive of my house very freely and easily. But going on the road as a speaker violates some of my own just boundaries and parameters right now of what I need from my family and what my family needs from me. So I panic a little bit being like, hey, if the major motion is going to be speaking, how do I do that in a way that there's not like just so much saturation right here? But there's a lot of people that live within an hour and a half of my house. So, I could probably spend some time just doing that and it would be fine. So I know that motion is working. I feel like I'm getting much crisper in telling the story and in getting people to be like, oh, I understand what you're doing. I understand the problem you're fixing. And I'm getting that repeated back to me, I feel like, more effectively than I was 4 months ago.
But even with the speaking, you had 70% of a room of what size? If this became the only thing, how many talks would you have to give with how many people in attendance to get to the number if 70% hold true?
And that's the second, I think the second thing I would say, okay, if this is the motion that Sam and I need to make really effective and efficient, and this is relationship with speakers bureaus and booking agencies and event companies, it's like a different outbound motion of who I'm getting to understand what I'm doing, different marketing package, all that kind of stuff.
But the idea of experimentation isn't going away. You have to do this, and you have to have multiple areas that you're experimenting in all at the same time, so that if one doesn't work, you have enough data to say, here's what it takes to shift to this. And then you can make the business decision of, do I go all in or not? If it's competing with my values and I can't get to the value, maybe I have to go back to the drawing board and say, well, this is not the product for the market right now.
I think my takeaway from this is that my priorities become my tests, and my pro forma is not necessarily a 12-month pro forma. It's more like, in the next 90 days, this is the momentum we need to see. These are the sales we need to see. And that will set the velocity and like almost like mini funnel of the next quarter of like, okay, let's test this with the second motion of prospects through this, or lists, or people that are a little bit further out of my center of influence, and see how the metrics hold up. So that's helpful for me. I want to like have this neat and tidy spreadsheet with all of these sort of things, and it scratches an itch for me to have all that together, but I think it's a waste of time.
You'll need it eventually, but not at this point.
But probably not in 2026. Yeah. Anything else people need to know about that?
Part of the test is saying, when you think you have something, you ran into this at the agency, is that when you create something and you have an idea, you believe that it's the greatest idea ever. And that is what's called inventor syndrome, where somebody goes, yeah, this is the thing, everybody's going to buy it, it makes total sense. And you enter the world with this mindset of course this is going to work, which is what you should do. The danger is that you misinterpret market feedback as momentum when you actually don't have it. So just be careful as you like. There's two very different things. I did a talk, 70% converted. That is market feedback. I met with these people. They said, this is a great idea, but they're going to get back to me. I don't have market feedback yet because I have no conversions. So be very careful, because the product could change, the market could change, all these things could change. And at this point, you need to be very in tune with what am I learning and where do I have to iterate in order to meet the needs of the marketplace, which you've done a lot of. It's clear that people say this is needed. The next step is, but will they pay for it? So just everybody has to have that caution, because it's not what's wrong with the idea, because the idea is really usually a good idea. It's what the marketplace thinks about the idea, not you.
And I think, I've learned a lot on the pricing side because, she loves to be premium. It's sort of my perspective on the world. I love to buy premium and I love to be premium. And I started to realize I have to make this really easy financially, because I understand as an owner, I don't want to put $100,000 into some of these programs. It just doesn't make sense. I need to use those dollars in other areas. And so I started to realize, it can be a premium experience. It can be a premium product. This can be a premium moment for this audience. I have to figure out how to do it at scale so that I can do that from a quality perspective. And so that started to inform the way the product came together, because I don't want to dilute. I don't know, this is probably narcissistic, but I feel like I'm known for that. We do things at a really high level, and I want to be able to continue to do that. So that forced me to think about, how do I make an access point that is lower cost and easy to say yes to, but not dilute the experience. So as I kind of put some of my own boundaries, and again, I think reacting to some of that market feedback was they just couldn't say yes at a higher price point. So we'll see if they can say yes at this price point. Okay, well, we'll keep you updated, or we won't if you guys are bored with it all. But I think this is the real stuff. These are the things we're really trying to solve. And I care about giving guys really practical ways to think through when you're exploring. I have so many people come up and say, I want to try this business. I had a young woman say, how do you manage hiring into growth and all those kinds of things? And so this is the real stuff. So, okay, let's talk a couple of things I think are going right at Element 3 that, I don't know, was it 18 months ago? Kyler and I meet with Brian monthly or quarterly. Kyler runs the agency day to day. Brian and his team do sales training. They work with our account team. He meets with Kyler in a sales management capacity and helps us, really is in tune with the agency day to day. Was it 18 months ago? We sat across from you at lunch and said, we've got two problems. One is we don't have control over our pipeline without Tiffany involved. And two, we've lost this sales culture that we had. We needed to reestablish and rebuild that. So was it? Yeah,
it was 18 months ago that conversation was happening. It's almost 11 months now where I got the phone call from you where you finally got angry about.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Or I was like,
you were frustrated.
Yeah, I was frustrated. But I also told Kyler that he hears it. But yeah, I was frustrated. So we had lunch last week and Kyler was like, oh my word, the sales culture is totally back. And I want to talk about what that means and why that's important to an environment that's winning. And right now with the advent just of AI coming into our industry, agencies are struggling and our business will always be hard, but we are not struggling. And I think this is a big piece of that. So I just want to talk about it. I don't think we always do. It's not a used car salesman, we're pushing a bunch of things on people that don't need it. So just talk about what is a sales culture. Everybody's got to be on board with kind of that ethos, and how do you build it? What's it look like? And what does it even mean?
I think it's easier to define if you think about what isn't a sales culture. So a sales culture is a company that believes that the reason that they're successful is by the way that they operate. So they focus on operations, they focus on operational efficiencies, they focus on quality, they focus on all these things. And their thinking is that if I do all these things in an agency world, if we put out great work, then customers will flock to us, people will stay, we'll have great retention, we'll have great profits. And what happens is they realize that none of those things, leading through operations, is never going to get you where you need to get to. And so the realization that people face is, oh, well, but we want to have good quality. We want to do work. We want to do those things, but we also need to survive and grow and be better. And that is when they make that shift and that decision to say, well, if it can't be operations, what is it? They sort of land on, well, it must be sales. And then what happens is they hit this wall where they go, but we don't want to be that. We don't want to be salespeople. We don't want to focus on sales. We don't want to have to do all that. There's this, I don't understand. And the missing piece and what that gap is only comes from a misunderstanding of what sales is. People just think because I think of sales as used cars guy or because I think of sales as a yucky thing, I believe that there's a gap. But doctors sell, hospitals sell, like there's all these things out there helping the world that people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that they exist. And they don't realize they're in a sales funnel because it's not called sales. And so when a company says, hey, we need to bring this back, it's not, we need to be focused on revenue because they always were. It's that we need to be focused on a different way of achieving that revenue than through operations.
So let's go back to using the agency as an example. If in a non-sales environment, we're focused on things like work quality, which is important, but like, hey, our future will rest on our enthusiastic and complete and excellent completion of this work. If that's not what it is inside of our walls, as an example, what are they focused on instead or in addition to?
So there's the shift of how do I go from one to the other? And it's a super weird phenomenon, is that when people say we don't want to get there through sales, they end up being the salesy thing that they were trying to avoid. So what happens is they put pitches together and they tell people this is what we're going to do that's amazing. And they say, look at all these great things that we did. And here's how awesome our people are and all those things. And if you were sitting in that meeting where somebody's just going, here's how great we are. Here's how awesome we are. Here's our proposal. Here's all those things. You'd go, oh, they're really trying to sell me. And so that is where you end up. And so the unwinding is to go, well, that is not what you want it to be. What you really want to be is a group of problem solvers and paying attention to what is the client's issue and what is the depth of that. And do I really understand what the problem is? And then do I understand that so well that I'm able to tell them how I'm going to fix that problem in a way that they say, oh my gosh, we will pay you to do that. And they have trust and faith to do it. That's actually what selling is. So the journey was just helping your team realize that at their core, they're problem solvers. They weren't leading with the problem. They were leading with, here's how amazing we are instead, and had accidentally become the yucky salespeople, which were driving people away.
Well, even going back to your doctor analogy, my brain was just going through this where it's like, if I was like my athlete, we're at the orthopedic surgeon sometimes. And so if he was like going through a catalog of surgeries and like awards and customer feedback on like different things and like kind of like, which surgery would you like, Ainsley? It would feel so strange versus exactly what you're saying was like, hey, here, what's wrong? What's going on? Let's investigate this. Let me ask a bajillion questions about your exact situation and then tell you what it is I think we ought to do together. He's going to get to the place where we have some type of a therapy treatment or a surgery or whatever needs to happen, but it's all through the lens of how can I help you? Versus like what you were just saying, here's the buffet of things I could do in the off chance that you have some pain. And when you start to teach your people and yourself of when I have an honest pursuit of understanding the situation, the environment, and where that company wants to, needs to, has to get better, then I can activate all the things I know professionally to be able to help you or other people I know. And then you start to become a really helpful extension of their problem solving. And so it's exactly what I'm just like exporting, like it's exactly what you're talking about. And when you have writers and designers and project managers and people who are doing things in business, but didn't go to school for business, like entrepreneurs and finance people, the idea of selling, there's like this pukey reaction to the whole thing. And so recasting that of like, it is about just solving problems. And that's how you create this culture where as the founder, you don't feel alone in generating revenue across the organization. A salesperson doesn't feel alone in generating revenue. It becomes a true team sport and you're putting out amazing work. Everybody understands the problem that you're solving. And it's just like the velocity starts to completely change than it being just like one or two people that are worrying about, stressing about doing all the things. So it changes so quickly. I think the other piece that can be hard for people to get comfortable with is the accountability part that comes with a sales culture. So like, saying we want you to reach out to one person in your network every quarter. And just the accountability to do some of those things, I think can be uncomfortable and foreign at the beginning.
But that goes back to the bias of, but that sounds like prospecting and that sounds like a sales thing, instead of, no, we want you to go out there and find people who have problems, who need those problems solved and want to find somebody they trust to solve that. So when you change the bias of what that is, people will do it, but they don't. So accountability is not real. You don't build structures of accountability. You don't do that. You only do it as a starting point, because accountability is helping somebody realize what is important. So nobody held you accountable to take a shower today. You just did it because it was important. You don't have a tracker sheet or anything like that. So the accountability is just a small step to have people do it anyway, even though they don't really want to. And they're like, this is yucky, so that they realize, oh, wait, I was misinterpreting what this was. This wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And this is a much easier, much lighter, much more fun conversation that I should be having. Oh, I'll do this all the time now. So it's really just the uncomfortable of, we're going to make you do this right now, just so you know it's not as bad as you think it is. And you'll actually love doing it.
Love it. So how does this tie in? And I don't know if this is a simple answer. And I'm sharing the element 3 example of our record new business year, not to brag, but to provide a beacon of hope for those of you who feel like you're in this place where it's like, it's all on my shoulders. And people told me so many times, like, so you go, so goes the agency. Like, this is not the kind of business you get a new leader for. This is not the kind of business that you can develop a sales motion for. Like, that is not this kind of business, Tiffany. And we have proven them wrong by, I'd say, a lot of discipline and having great people around us. So how does that happen? And I'm self-conscious. It's probably not a 3-minute answer, but where do you start with something like that? And I don't know, what can you share in this medium, Brian, that might give people an idea? I don't even know where to tell them to start. I would be like, hire Kyler, but don't hire Kyler.
Well, but remember, what did you hire Kyler for?
To solve different problems that I knew how to solve.
But what problems were they?
To figure out how to scale revenue. I'm like, I always solved it with myself.
Kyler was not there to scale revenue when you hired him.
What did I hire him to do?
Yeah, initially.
I hired him to give me flexibility.
Yeah, Kyler he knew how to understand data. He knew how to look at things from a different lens than you did. He was the sort of the concrete thing. And he was a problem solver by looking at customer problems through a different lens than you had on the team. And he learned to use that to sell over time, and how to position things and how to position solutions to that, and became very good at managing customers and growing customers because of his understanding of, if I deeply understand the problem and I communicate to the customer in this way, they trust me to solve it and give me the revenue to that. Thus, fast forward, now that he can do that at a customer level, you developed him into a leader that can do that at the company level at the same time, because the leader at the company level is not only doing that with customers, but he's doing that with the team. And he's saying, here's the problem we're solving. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. And he's selling the company growth through the lens of problems first. And so that's where the scaling of Kyler happened, is that he started with, I understand these issues that nobody else understands, to, oh, now you can do that on a wide scale.
So I think as it relates to this issue, I'd say some of the things I had to do was just to get out of the way, and like really get out of the way, because every time there was a problem I could solve, I wanted to come in and solve it with me. It made me feel important. It gave me something to do. And I would like feel bad that it was hard for him to solve. I was like, I don't know, I can probably just go do it. But I was like, I have to get out of the room because that can't be the answer. And he knows that, but it's hard for him to say that to me. So I just need to go away so that he can solve this, and let them spend some money and let them figure this out. And they are very data oriented. So I was able to see very clearly, like exactly what we were talking about at the beginning of them saying, we think this is what can happen. these are the interim funnel metrics that we're going to set for ourselves to see how close or far away we are from some of these guesses of impact. So it was very controlled, but nonetheless, it was a bet and an experiment and required a lot of testing and data and clarity. And for me to get out of the way, like I had to move.
But this whole topic just went full circle of
I know.
back to your experimentation of
Totally.
You made the choice to trade your ego for growth of your company and decided to step out of the way. You used data for your experiment that said, I am doing the right things because I'm seeing evidence that it is working on that, which caused you to stay out and allow the progress to occur.
Okay. So true. I didn't know that this conversation is going to be so connected, but in fact it is. So yeah, in the season of growth and goal setting, I think there's so many people out there being like, yeah, go for it. But like how actually, like in that 3 inches above the ground where your behavior has to actually do something, like what do you do? So anyway, if you're stuck or you don't know what to do, or you feel like you're hitting your head on your own ceiling of complexity, that is what Brian and his team does. There's a link in show notes. I just have to pimp you out because it's amazing what you've helped me do and helped me grow. And you've been a huge piece of that. So anyway, if you want some of Lushin and the team, please reach out to Brian. Brian, thanks for this. I always come into these a little tired and a little confused, and I exit being like, okay, I'm clear. Now she's ready to go. So it's 9:02 and I just had a 2-hour meeting get canceled. So I'm going to go get to work.
All right. Have a great day.
That's good. You too. Thanks for listening to The Life of And. This is your weekly reminder to keep making bold choices, saying clear yeses, and holding space for what matters most. As always, if you like this episode, I'd love for you to drop a review and share it with your friend. It's the fastest way that we can grow the show. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you next time.